Okay, welcome back to Live, Laugh, Love, Real Estate Conversations with Lisa Loveland and Kosta Hanztis. Today's going to be a day of data, and we have a lot of it. So we are being joined, our guest today is Debra Taylor. She is the founder and creator of Link, which is, it's kind of like the multiple listing service of the city and the Cape Nantucket and the Vineyard. And they track all transactions, not just ones that were in MLS, but all transactions in all of those counties. And her graphs and her information is super impressive and really informative. So we're really excited to have her on, and we're going to talk about that data as well as get her forecast for what she thinks is coming in the fall market. So welcome, Deb. Thanks so much for joining.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So why don't you, I know what you do, but why don't you tell our viewers why you started Link and exactly what it is that you guys do?
Okay, so I started Link because I felt there was not enough comprehensive data around the core neighborhoods of downtown Boston. And I felt as though the condominium market really operates so differently than a single family market or a multifamily, that having high level due diligence level data as a company would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yep.
And so I started Link in 1987, just as the condo market was actually forming. Mm-hmm. And we have been able to really, because we create and own our own software, we've been able to modify our database so that we can get really exacting data by building, by neighborhood.
I love that you can do that by building.
Floor,
So important.
Give me a list of everything that's sold above the 35th floor citywide.
Yeah.
Things like that you can't do in most other data aggregators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
So today, the focus clearly is downtown Boston, and the term downtown Boston really covers core Boston neighborhoods that include Back Bay, Beacon Hill, Charlestown, East Boston, Fenway, Midtown, North End, South Boston, South End, Seaport, Waterfront, and West End. So when you hear me use the term citywide, it's those core downtown Boston neighborhoods. And the question I get the most frequent is, how's the Boston market doing?
Yeah.
And how have we
We
done
get
over
that question
time?
as well.
Yeah.
Say that sounds familiar.
Yeah, and we actually have created a 20-year price index so that you can really look to see how the condominium market has appreciated over time, including how Boston's done during disruptive phases, 9/11, the 2008 financial crisis, the global sell-off in 2016 to 18, right up through COVID. And what's remarkable in our price index is that, yes, we have had softening, but over the long run, we've recovered remarkably, and Boston has never been higher in terms of overall long-term appreciation.
I believe that. I mean,
So that's a big,
yeah, it's a big
I'm
deal.
excited about that,
Yeah.
that we're really rock solid.
Great.
And the other question that I get frequently is, well, with COVID, what's happened and what are the COVID impacts, and are things slowing down? I think that's everyone's fear, whether you're buying here
Right.
or you're selling. When do I sell? So what we look at is really the dollar sales volume of all condominiums, regardless if they were sold by an agent or not. So this is all arm's length transactions. And we did have a softening in 2020, but the overall total dollar volume was $3.5 billion in residential sales in the city. The peak was in 2019, which was $4.2 billion. And in 2021, we are clearly on our path to either meet or exceed the total dollar volume of 2020.
That's great.
So I think that's no pun intended, speaks volumes.
How about the number of transactions? How does that compare?
I would say the number of transactions in the first 6 months of 2021 are up 76%.
Wow.
Wow, yeah.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
We've seen some softening in the average and median selling prices, probably to be expected. A lot of the higher end real estate impacts that. When you have condominiums over $5 million, property owners can afford not to sell. They can wait. Someone may be hesitant to buy, or maybe putting their money into a secondary home. So it's not that prices are necessarily softening. It's that average and median have taken a hit. However, when you peel that back and look at the price per square foot, which in Boston is really, I consider it like the cost of goods sold, the true cost of goods.
Yes, I do too.
And the average and median price per square foot are down less than 5% in the first 6 months of 2021, which I think is fantastic.
It's impressive, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a solid market. It's
Yeah.
a stable market.
Yeah. And of those, the 76% increase in sales, what is so notable is that we are seeing a strong number of properties selling over asking. We are now seeing almost 20% of properties selling over asking price.
Yeah, it's amazing that that's still continuing. We always were wondering how long the buyers would have a stomach for that kind of competition, but
Yeah.
it's become the norm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're seeing anything between 700,000 or 800,000 up through 2 million tends to be like the sweet spot of Boston. Anything in those price ranges tend to really sell quickly and over asking. But when you get kind of over that 2.5, 3 million, I think that part of the market has clearly slowed down.
Yeah. Yep.
And for those of you that might be interested, citywide, the average selling price of a condominium in Boston is $1,128,000, and the median selling price is $819,000. And that's for all condominiums, full service and traditional.
Okay.
What's so interesting is, this is one of the fun parts about my business, is that we have over the years realized that full service luxury operates completely differently than the traditional resale market. So when we look at luxury full service, which is a collection of luxury buildings in Boston that offer 24-hour concierge, some form of deeded or valet parking, and state-of-the-art amenities, that median, that average selling price is $1,765,000, with a median of $1,220,000. And in the Lux full service buildings, we are seeing a softening in the first 6 months of the year of close to a 20% reduction in the price per square foot. So average price per square foot in luxury is $1,352 a foot, which is still significant.
Right. And a good time to buy in luxury. Luxury is going to come back. The COVID thing is what's kind of scared everybody away.
Right.
The common spaces and elevators and all of that stuff. But as soon as this kind of, finds its way out, when everyone gets vaccinated, it's my feeling. I'm interested in your take too, Deb, that market will come back. So anyone that's looking to buy in, luxury buildings, now would be a good time to get in. It's not as competitive of a situation, and the prices are still kind of holding. You're going to get a little bit of a break.
Yes.
But what's your feeling on that? When do you see that turning?
I think a lot of it depends on the work from home trend and where that goes. I think that there's still a lot of COVID impacts that will probably take several years to really normalize. So I'm not expecting any quick, fast turnaround in luxury. Inventory continues to be somewhat restrained, so I don't feel as though there's any risk of the bottom falling out in luxury.
Right.
but at the same token, I don't see it quite as booming and robust as it has been.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting, and as real estate professionals, you both will appreciate this, is when you exclude luxury listings from the data, the price per square foot is down only a negligible 1%.
Wow.
So
it's so interesting when you really start to pull back these numbers.
Yeah.
It's like-
everyone believes what they hear, and nobody. This is why I wanted to have you on, because I want people to actually understand what is really going on in the real estate market, because that's a very pretty picture.
yeah, well,
Definitely.
Boston's really a tale of two cities.
Yes.
It's the ultra luxury full service buildings. That's what's being built. That's our future. And clearly we have a new wealth level in Boston. And then the second part of our city is our beautiful, traditional, elegant brownstone buildings in
Right.
smaller buildings. And those units, which tend to be more priced, a little more accessibly, those are selling at roughly $873 a square foot. So,
Yep.
and have really held rock solid.
Yeah. I remember when luxury first started, because Boston was kind of a late bloomer to the luxury market, late bloomer to the waterfront. It's always amazed me. I talk about it all the time. He's
Yeah.
laughing. Costa's laughing. I don't get it. But the question would come up: what do you think is going to happen to the value of our brownstones? I'm like, it isn't. That's what Boston's known for. It gives it its quaint, charming, neighborhoody feel. But Boston did need that little kick in more modern, contemporary,
Like the Seaport
exciting,
area.
Yeah.
A little bit.
lifestyle. So it's a real nice marriage. It brings a real great vibrancy to the city neighborhoods, I think.
Yeah, we have best-in-class ultra-luxury units, new construction at One Dalton and in Seaport. And the upcoming Winthrop Center is going to be just unparalleled, the Sudbury. So we did not have that
No.
even 7 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's exciting that we have all the charm and accessibility of a smaller city, but we feel more like a town, and we're
Yeah.
not like New York that's just so too much.
And I love New York, but
I love New
you know,
York
I
too.
do. I love New
Yeah.
York.
Yeah.
But Boston is and I think that's why we have such stability in our pricing, because it's a manageable city that gives so many amenities. It's walkable. It's not as large as New York. You don't feel,
Right.
you've got green space. So there's a empty nesters want to come into the city. Families don't want to leave for all of those reasons we just stated. So it makes for I think a stable real estate market and stable price points.
Yes. So not only are we a tale of two cities in luxury versus traditional, we're a city of wonderful neighborhoods.
Right.
And we've done a neighborhood breakdown, and some neighborhoods have set new records in the first 6 months of 2021. So including Seaport, hitting new highs on average and median price per square foot. And the South End has done spectacularly well. New record price of $1,086 a square foot in the South End. And
That's amazing. I remember when it was, and I mean, less than 10 years ago, it was in the 600s a square foot.
yeah. And then I have what we consider at Link more accessible neighborhoods. And those include Charlestown, which has had a whopping 6% increase in average selling price.
Wow.
And East Boston is remarkably well. New records, including new highs for average selling price, median selling price, both average and median price per square foot. So Charlestown, you can get in $723 average price per square foot.
That's great.
So I think we're seeing a lot of people who were priced out of Boston in previous years now view this as an opportunity to come into the city, purchase their dream unit, maybe it's a first-time home buyer, and those more accessible neighborhoods are doing remarkably well. And
What was the average price per square foot in East Boston? I think
So-
that'll be an impressive number.
Yeah, so
It's
in
changed so much.
East Boston, it's $723
Wow.
Yeah.
price per
crazy.
square foot.
Yep.
I remember going there when I was young. I used to go to the sit in the parking lot of, you can see the planes take off in East Boston,
Yeah.
and just drive through there and just it was crazy to see like the buildings there. But like now, when you go there, there's new buildings everywhere.
Oh, the waterfront's
It's beautiful.
unbelievable.
Yeah,
It's awesome
Yeah.
to see.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other interesting way we look at the market, which is nothing unique to us, but I look at this whenever I travel to a new city or a new place. I'm like, what can you get under $1 million? And sort of that over $1 million, under $1 million. And what I've been saying for years is that Boston is really approaching becoming $1 million plus market, which is another reason I think I always advocate, if you're looking to buy, don't wait. Prices are really over time are just only tend to going up.
It's
So
true.
if you're under $1 million buyer right now, over 65% of the listings citywide are selling under $1 million, and 35% are selling over $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
And we expect that over $1 million price points to continue, because what's being built is all luxury or ultra luxury and sells well over $1 million.
And who are you seeing that's buying the ultra luxury?
So what we're seeing, many international
Yep.
people who have homes globally.
Mm-hmm.
So before it used to be, one or two homes, and that was a really big deal. Like
Yeah.
this is their second home or maybe third. But now we're just seeing home collectors that just have homes in, more than one, more than two, possibly more than 3 cities or places. And we've also, in the past 7 to 10 years, have seen an incredible number of executives, kind of tech executives,
Yep.
venture capitalist titans, also center their companies in Boston as headquarters. So definitely some of that type
Yep.
of corporate high net worth person or entrepreneur.
Yep.
Fairly new for us, and clearly the international pool does include families of students coming into Boston as well.
Yep. We see the same thing.
Absolutely. It's cool to see, we were talking briefly before, but I actually picked up a book like a few months ago called Storytelling with Data. It's just a coincidence that we're having you on the show, but the premise of the book is taking data, whether that's in list or long formats, and painting a picture and graphs that most people can understand, which is exactly what you do. Because it's like you were saying before too, everybody's like, when you ask the question of how's the market, I mean, you explained it's very specific to what you're talking about, ultra luxury, which neighborhood, but people don't really necessarily have the foundation of the data to be speaking on it. So it's nice to actually have the confidence to have a certain opinion with data to back up what you're saying in real estate, especially because everybody's like, yeah, somebody like, how's the market? And they'll just like list just things that they've seen. Maybe they were talking to one person that said something, and then some guy or wherever said something about the real estate market, and all of a sudden they tell that person, it goes on, but nobody's actually like looking at the specific data to back the claims that they're making. So I think it's not only great for real estate agents to have access to the data, but people in general, just so they can say, hey, this is my opinion when it comes to, it doesn't necessarily have to be an opinion. It's like, here's what's actually going on.
The facts.
Say what you want, what's happening, but we have the data to back it up.
Right.
That's awesome.
One of those big things was everyone's fleeing cities. Well, people were fleeing New York. But New York's a much bigger city. But people really weren't fleeing Boston.
No.
And you might have some statistics to prove that. But what we've seen is the people that were, well, let's back that up a minute. I've been in the business for 19 years. So we've been wondering when the families were going to leave the city. And they just didn't. And then they'd have another kid and they're still here. And then they're, they won't want to pay these prices and do private schools. They did. So I think COVID made some of those people that had one foot out take the next step, but we didn't see a mass exodus from the city to the suburbs here.
We did not.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
definitely saw a major increase in the islands. We track Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket, and the demand for those properties have been off the charts.
Yeah.
But those purchases are in addition to
Right. Which is amazing.
Which is remarkable.
Yeah.
We did not have any kind of big sell-off, and even if we did, there's just so much pent-up demand. So many people have been priced out of Boston with bidding, losing out on a bidding war.
Yep.
So I think we definitely expected to see a whole group of buyers who had been priced out kind of circulating back into Boston for an opportunity type of purchase if the market were to soften, but we really haven't seen that.
Haven't seen that, no.
I think that's what we were all thinking was going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of a lull. I have noticed a bit of a lull this summer, but that happens in the summer. And I think COVID, we talked about this a little bit earlier. It's our prices are staying stable, but it feels like there isn't a lot of urgency right now in the market.
Yeah.
From a buyer standpoint.
Well, I think everyone is just so enmeshed in these last few days of summer and enjoying the outdoors and the Cape and the islands. And I know I've been on the vineyard all summer, and it's just the farthest thing from my mind has been anything, big decisions or...
Yeah, they'll come later.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah,
So
it's been a tough 18 months for a lot of people.
Yeah, and our summers are so short.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the work from home definitely is, as you talked about earlier, is a huge factor in predicting the future too, because that's whether the big corporations that house employees are going to bring them back, when that's going to happen. It's definitely going to rush people into being like, if I need to go back to the office, a lot of people work in Boston. If they're working from home right now, they don't really have to worry about it. They're kind of just go to the Cape, as you're saying, or go on vacation. I notice a lot of people are going to, like, not necessarily around here too, but just different places. I see a lot of people going on like more and more vacations, and I think it's because, or trips for like a week. I talked to some friends and people in general. It's because they can take their laptop with them and do that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that we didn't see, which was just wonderful, is unlike the West Coast, we didn't have any form of an exodus of companies and
That was huge.
any form of migration. What we've had is people staying close enough in proximity to Boston within, I'd say, 2 to 3 hours, which is why we've seen such an uptick in home sales in the Berkshires, on the Cape, the islands.
Makes sense.
And it's all somewhat commutable to Boston, but it's clearly not out of the state.
Yep.
And I think one thing we've seen on the islands is many people who have had homes there are just retiring a little faster, or not even fully retiring, but maybe working a little bit less.
We're seeing that on the Cape too. I
Yeah.
started selling the Cape the last season and this season, and this season we see a lot of that.
Yeah. And these aren't necessarily new home buyers. They're just using their secondary homes as a primary home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I see that a lot in terms of friends that have houses, that have had secondary houses their family has. I see them spending a lot more time there, but again, for the time being, just because they can.
Right.
It's tough just to
Exactly.
predict when.
It'll be interesting to see how all of this COVID stuff plays out.
Yeah.
It's definitely game changers in so many industries, and I think ours is one of them as well.
I think people are just enjoying it too, because like now it's a little bit different too. It's hard to predict where COVID's going, whether we're getting more restricted, which we kind of are, but I think for the time being too, when restrictions were lifted, people were more and more just enjoying all their pent up travel and doing so much things that they couldn't do for the past year. So I think part of it too is playing a factor is just that whole idea with the work from home plus pent up of, I want to go travel and go to these places or do this. They're not really too worried about making any big decisions, as you were saying.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think people are getting to better understand how, a work-life balance and how does that relate to, and that everything relates to where you live. But people haven't figured that out yet. So do I need a bigger house? Do I need to be near my work? Because if I don't need to be near my work in the city, I'm kind of free to go wherever I want to go. So, consciously or unconsciously, all of these things are playing out, and we see it in the market.
Yeah, I think everyone, myself included, when you're spending so much time at home, you finally can think about like your home. Like when we were all so busy and events every night and meetings and going nonstop, home wasn't necessarily, it was a place to land and yes, a place to live, but I felt like I never really thought about other options and what could be nice or what would be nice. So I think that just having the time to think about, wait, I don't have a balcony, and maybe I could move to a different neighborhood and have a yard. Like, I think it just got everyone thinking, not just here in Boston, but across the country. We've just had an unrivaled, crazy home, people moving, buying and selling.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just because I think people had time to think about where and what they were living in.
Yes.
I think it's like, especially like you talk about work from home, but doing that, just like, I feel as though talking to people, they were just like, a lot of the times we see people stay in like the same hometown or same area that they always have been for their life. And it's just, I think, as you were saying before, they don't think about it. And it's just like, oh, I've lived here all my life because I work here or my job's here. But now it's like, wait, why
become
am I here?
unshackled.
Like,
I have freedom. What do I do with that? How do I decision make?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny to see.
It's interesting to see. So, Deb, what do you see coming in the next quarter, in the fall market?
So, Boston our real estate market is very seasonal.
Yes.
So don't panic about the summer being slow, okay?
I know.
Put your seatbelt on for the fall market. Yeah. It's really the two busiest times are the fall market and the spring market.
Yep.
So we're anticipating a solid fall market. I don't feel as though we're going to have any major explosion of buyers, but I think that as people matriculate out of the summer mode, that they will be certainly an active real estate market. Yeah. And I think we're going to finish the year strong. I think we're going to finish either at what we did in 2020 or more. So clearly maybe over that $3 billion, maybe not the $4 billion, but I think that I'm optimistic.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah,
I feel
really
good
am.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
What do you think about in terms of inventory, in terms of more sellers coming to the market? Do you think we're going to see more of that in the fall, or counterbalance between, I know there's a bunch of pent up demand in terms of buyers, but also in terms of sellers, whether they're away, don't have time to really think about selling right now. Do you think in the fall market we'll see an uptick in sellers?
Well, Kosta, now you're asking me a tough question because
I got it. Hey.
All right.
And the people want to know.
I have to answer it honestly.
We wouldn't want anything other.
Please do.
So it may not be the answer you
don't
want
have a
to
magic
hear
ball, though,
as real estate brokers, or professionals. I just am not clear that we're going to have any substantial amount of inventory teased up.
I agree.
I'm just not.
I agree.
We're not seeing people leave the city, even though people are maybe working from their secondary or third home. They're not necessarily under any duress to sell in Boston. So I think my prediction is inventory will continue to be tight.
Yep.
The market is appreciating even in the context of COVID. New construction pipeline is very limited. There's not a lot of new supply coming on. Our biggest challenge in Boston has been inventory.
Yeah.
Forever and ever.
I know.
So I think I just don't see any significant amount of listings coming on. I think part of it is our neighborhoods are so strong and vibrant and beautiful. But if you're on the Cape, on the Vineyard, you want to get back to the city for the fall.
And I think
to connect to your office and your work. And
yep. And I think that, the market for buyers has been, everything needs to be perfect. People don't even want to change paint colors. And what I've been telling my buyer clients is, because they ask the same question, do you think more is going to come on? And my answer is very similar to yours, Deb. I don't think so.
Yeah.
So when we are unable to change that factor, we need to change something else if you want to get into the market. And it's a great time to be in the market because of interest rates. So, and because of the appreciation continues to go as real estate typically does. You've got to go in and not look for it to be perfect. You have to have a more open eye. You have to look at it in a different way. Go in and see if it has the majority of what you would need, and then make some changes. At least you'll be into the market. At least you can start to ride that appreciation up.
Exactly.
And then if things change down the road, in a number of years, you can sell that and get into that dream, the house that is perfect. But to not get a seat at the table is a real disservice to you and your wealth building.
I could not agree more. And interestingly enough, we actually, because we're data slice and dicers, we sliced and diced the selling price per square foot of studios, like under 500 square feet, and the price per square foot of those tiny units. So to your point, Lisa, just get in, get a seat at the table, no matter what it is.
Yep.
Well, that seat at the table for a small unit is north of $1,000 a square foot,
Right.
which just goes to substantiate your point. Is it may not be perfect, it may be small, but you're in, you own it. It's a wealth creation vehicle. And if there's any one point I'd like to make here, and I drank my own Kool-Aid when I bought a unit in downtown Crossing. I'm like, if I don't get in now, I'm going to be priced out. It's going to be well over $1 million market, and this was a second residence for me, and of course that area is well over $1 million. So look at neighborhoods selling under $1 million: South Boston, East Boston, the North End, Charlestown.
Yep.
Get your foot in the door. Get a seat at the table.
Yep.
And then, there is, to your point, Lisa, and you're so realistic, is it may not be your dream place, but you will have that property appreciation.
Right.
And those units are out there. You just have to connect with the right real estate professional and take that first step. But Boston is trending to becoming an over $1 million market.
Yeah.
Seaport's over $1 million. Back Bay is now selling over, more than half of the sales are over $1 million. That's my kind of definition of over $1 million. And
South End's got to be.
South End
It's right
is
up
right
there,
up there too. So the under $500,000 price points are vanishing. It's negligible now to have anything in that price range, but $750 or under or $800 and under, I think would be just a rock solid investment.
I agree.
But don't expect it to be perfect.
No, I know, and that's just the story of life, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I always say, even if you were to build a brand new home, there would be some things that you would say, "Oh, geez, I should have done that differently." So, Deb, this is awesome. Thank you. We hope to have you as a regular guest so we can give our viewers quarterly updates on what is really happening in the Boston real estate market. So, as always, our viewers, we appreciate your time. Deb, we appreciate your time, and we will see everybody next week.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
You got it.
Thank you.